Good day, everyone. This is Ridley here, Regional Director for APAC Assistance. It's a pleasure to introduce Paul Quaglia, our founding director, who is joined by Tony Ridley, a veteran of our industry. We'll be discussing the recent developments in security sector and how the sector has evolved post-pandemic. Over to you, Paul. Please begin with introduction to Tony as well. Thank you.
So good morning, it's 24th of May, Monday morning, bright and sunny here in Singapore like it always is if it's not belting with rain. Very interested to catch up with long-term security mentor and a bit of a sector legend, Tony Ridley, ex-SAS patrol leader or patrol commander. He's currently based in Australia. Spent a long time doing remote security and running a very large guarding company in Indonesia, where he learned about some of those grey security risks of Indonesia, followed by a long time with a very reputable global leader in Travel Security International, SAS. He's currently on a contract with the Australian federal government, but one of the real pioneers in thinking in how the security sector in particular can adjust from security mentality to operational risk and add value to companies rather than be seen as a cost to it. How are you going there, Tony? Good to talk to you again.
No, I'm good, thanks. Thanks very much for the talk up and the invite.
It's a pleasure. It's great to chat with you. Just thought I'd get no real agenda, as you can see, but very keen to see where you think the sector's moved in the last, must be 10 or 15 years since we were both in Singapore. What do you think about the progression in the sector? Is it maturing at all? I mean, my personal view is I'm seeing less and less experience in regional roles, more companies all trying to copy a global provider's mentality and have their own global operations centre, their own crisis and security experts, but those experts is kind of where it falls down. They're less worldly, less experienced. They're dominating a spot on a map that's perceived to be a regional city, but they don't necessarily have the regional exposure to have regional expertise. Now, obviously, you're seeing the federal government. You know, where do you think that trend is going? Is it getting better or worse? And where are the potential improvements going to be driven from?
First of all, there's a good reason why legal contracts in any reasonable analysis or research has a glossary of terms. Because when you talk about security and the industry, those terms are neither universal nor are they well measured, and therefore consumers think they're consuming security or they think they're part of the industry when in fact they're not. Over the last probably 10 or 15 years, certainly as we saw the decline of post 9/11, appetite and surge in security because of the obvious demand post-terrorism attack, the security industry itself has gone through a number of economic rationalizations whereby skill and expertise was supplanted by automation. Experience and expertise gained either in government, military or commercial circles was then supplanted with consultants that simply delivered a templated product. And that then exploded and turned into an information product landscape. Basically, anyone with a shingle that wanted to hang up security, including the big four consulting companies and accounting firms, all of a sudden became security experts overnight. So therefore, the industry and the definition of security has lost absolute relevance. In many industries, it's not comparable across cultures or economies or geographies, so it's a free-for-all. So when a client says they're buying security or when someone says they're providing something in the industry, who really knows? More often than not, they're not. More often than not, it's an individual that's cut and paste something from a textbook or has an invoice with security services on it, but it's not recognisable as either a profession or a quality product.
It's funny you say that, Tony. Two examples to reinforce what you're saying spring to mind. One is here in Singapore, the Monetary Authority of Singapore contract a lot of their security audits of data centres to one of the big four companies. And when you go in to do a vulnerability assessment, there are clear and obvious issues, but they've spent such an extraordinary amount of money on the physical security and on the physical security design that there's an inability to actually acknowledge there could be vulnerabilities. And those vulnerabilities are in how they're going to respond, the interoperability of those on site, the lack of desire from those high up the food chain to hear how it is. If you don't hear how it is, you can't fix the obvious errors. So it's almost comical. But the other one that pops to mind is I was in a remote site producing operational response as for a multinational oil company. And they had a in-house chap that was trying to superimpose templates from the northwest of Australia, where there were hundreds of staff, to where there were 2 or 3 staff in Timor, totally different environment, no similarities, but he just wanted to import a template, copy it, plagiarise it, and tailor it, and it was, it couldn't have been more unsuitable. I was also, in fact, a third example was I was in America, and it was very interesting to tour America and both see providers and see large multinational companies, all of whom seemed to think competency and security wasn't the ability to have experience and expertise and analyse and evaluate a situation and come up with a quick and meaningful plan. It was how much money you spent on a control centre and how many smart kids from elite universities you had sitting in there. And it was literally a pissing competition of who had the best screens, who had double-sided glass, and who had great kids with great CVs on paper. Cities in America evaluating risk in Africa and Asia.
and that was pre-COVID. What happened to those bragging rights of having everyone in a room huddled over the same monitor? They disappeared quickly.
Well, that's right. And it's very interesting because, some companies in the States are very mature. They've got a very advanced risk management process, but they've always been in business 100 odd years. They've learnt that you need to internationalise. You need to have very experienced, clever guys heading it, but you need to let go. And that's one of the big vulnerabilities we're seeing, that so many companies want to do it the way they've always done it. They want to use the same providers they've always had. They want to use the same, in England, double-breasted guys that were ex-generals. In Australia, it's got to be SAS. And that's not a shot against the SAS boys, but what they do very well. And some of those roles aren't necessarily trained for versatility, particularly on the intelligence side. They think that filling in a form as an int rep is what it's all about, but analysing data and reassessing various sources, that they perhaps overrate their training in terms of what it can apply to better than everybody else.